Once upon a time, in a vast and prosperous kingdom, there lived a young prince named Alric. He was brave, handsome, and skilled in all the arts of ruling, but there was one thing he lacked: humility. Alric had grown up surrounded by wealth and privilege, and while he was not unkind, he could not truly understand the struggles of his people. One day, the king sent Alric on a journey to visit neighboring kingdoms and learn from their rulers. Eager for adventure, the prince set out on horseback with a small entourage. They traveled through forests, crossed rivers, and past villages where Alric waved to the people but never truly stopped to speak with them. As they ventured deeper into unknown lands, a sudden storm struck. The rain poured in torrents, and the prince's horse slipped on the muddy path, throwing him into a river. Struggling against the current, Alric called for his guards, but the roaring waters carried him far downstream. When he finally managed to drag himself onto the riverbank, he was cold, soaked, and utterly alone. With no idea where he was, Alric wandered until he stumbled upon a small, run-down cottage in the woods. Exhausted and desperate, he knocked on the door. A frail but kind woman named Greta answered. Seeing his state, she invited him in without hesitation. "Come in, dear boy," she said. "You look like you've been through a storm." Grateful for the shelter, Alric introduced himself simply as Alric, not revealing he was a prince. Greta, along with her son Liam, offered him a warm meal and dry clothes. The clothes were simple, a patched cloak and a rough tunic, but Alric accepted them with a small smile. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of gratitude. The storm raged on for days, and Alric had no choice but to stay with Greta and Liam. During this time, he learned about their lives. Greta was a widow who worked tirelessly to provide for her son. Liam, though only 12, spent his days chopping wood and tending to their small garden. At first, Alric struggled with the labor. His hands, unaccustomed to hard work, blistered as he carried firewood and fetched water. He marveled at how Greta and Liam carried on without complaint, despite their hardships. They shared stories, laughter, and even the little food they had without hesitation. One evening, over a modest supper, Alric asked Greta, "How do you find joy in such a difficult life?" Greta smiled. "Happiness doesn't come from riches, my boy. It comes from finding contentment in what you have and sharing it with others." Her words struck a chord in Alric's heart. He began to see the beauty in their simple life, the warmth of their laughter, the satisfaction of a day's hard work, and the strength of their love for one another. The prince returns. After a week, a search party from the palace found Alric. When they saw him in his humble cloak, working in the garden with Greta and Liam, they were shocked. "Your Highness," they cried, bowing deeply. "We have been searching for you everywhere." Greta and Liam froze, realizing for the first time who their guest truly was. Alric, however, placed a reassuring hand on Greta's shoulder. "I am still Alric," he said with a smile. "And I owe you both more than you can imagine." He invited Greta and Liam to the palace, promising to provide for them. Though they were hesitant, they agreed. Once back in the grand halls of the castle, Alric could no longer see his life the same way. The luxuries he once took for granted seemed hollow, compared to the genuine warmth he had experienced in Greta's cottage. As the years passed, Alric became king. He ruled with humility and fairness, always keeping Greta's words close to his heart. He ensured that the kingdom's wealth was shared, creating schools, hospitals, and shelters for the poor. He often visited villages in disguise, listening to his people's concerns. The patched cloak Greta had given him hung in his chamber as a constant reminder of his time in the cottage and the lessons he had learned. Moral: humility is the crown of wisdom. Alric's reign became legendary, not because of his power, but because of his compassion. He proved that a ruler's greatness lies not in riches or titles, but in understanding and serving the people. And so, his kingdom flourished, a shining example of what humility can achieve.